Thank you so, so much. Here I am, and this time I'm here without a guitar or a cello. I don't even have a mic stand to hold on to. Tonight, I'm going to offer a song, a different kind of song, a soul song, a story of transformation that comes from healing. It's a renewal that resulted from one of my life's greatest challenges, adventures, I would even say blessings. It's truly a privilege and an honor to be with all of you beauties here this evening. It's a privilege to breathe, to see, to feel, to incarnate as luminous expressions of spirit encased in these amazing bodies. These bodies comprised of nearly 100 trillion cells. 100 trillion cells cooperating and collaborating and communicating to create this remarkable vessel for our human experience. So let's just take a moment and breathe that in. Let's breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now, as each one of us breathed, our chest expanded, our diaphragm lowered. Air traveled in through either our nose or mouth, moved down our windpipe, rushed into our lungs, filled the alveoli, which in turn transferred oxygen into our bloodstream, absorbed carbon dioxide, which it then released back into the air. Beautiful, perfect, effortless. And if we follow that example and watch that air as it's then absorbed by plants and trees who convert it back into oxygen and release it in turn back into the air, and the air circulates around the globe through an astounding interplay of convection currents. Meanwhile, the air nourishes all, protects, holds this sacred planet that is spinning around the sun, maintaining just the perfect distance to allow life as we know it to thrive. Any closer and we would burn up just a hair further, and our planet would be an icy, uninhabitable dark mass. But it's not. There's a perfection and an intelligence and an order, a coherence, a balance, a communication, a cooperation that stretches from the subatomic level to the furthest reaches of the cosmos. It's awe-inspiring. It's astounding. But what happens when this apparent perfection, this apparent balance and cooperation is somehow eclipsed by an experience of chaos, of pain, tragedy, disease? That's the story I'm here to share with you this evening. It was just a little over 2 years ago that I was in a hospital, barely able to breathe, barely able to move. I had 2 massive tumors on my ovaries, and as a result of the cancer and all my touring and travels, I had an innumerable collection of pulmonary embolisms and blood clots. The chief radiologist who reviewed my scans said he had never seen such diseased lungs on a young person. I was a lifelong athlete, yogini. My mother was a yoga teacher. So I grew up doing headstands and sun salutations as easily as skipping rope or riding a bike. My parents started an organic farm So I grew up eating healthy, organic, whole foods. I confess that never in my life have I eaten a McDonald's hamburger, Twinkie Ho-Ho, Coca-Cola. That wasn't ever a part of my nourishment. With a daily spiritual practice, exercise, healthy diet, I never imagined that this would happen to me. Nobody ever really expects a cancer diagnosis, but I really did not expect it. Now, the gift in this cancer diagnosis was because my physical vessel was so pure and healthy. I never had been sick. I was the one who people would get colds and flus, and I'd be like, I'm impervious to health challenges. I'm not concerned. And indeed, that was the case. I never got sick. I could maintain extraordinary travel schedules. And every morning I would wake up, I would do my yoga, I would meditate, I would eat my healthy breakfast, and I was set. So the amazing thing in being completely immobilized and hardly able to breathe, there was so much fluid in my lungs and abdomen as a result of the cancer that I couldn't even lie down to sleep because the fluid would push up into my lungs and I couldn't breathe. So I had to sleep sitting up. I couldn't really sleep, frankly. It didn't really happen. But again, the compromised physical state that all of a sudden I found myself in actually pushed me to look beneath the physical, to look for the root cause. That somehow it wasn't about my physical being, but it was about an energetic, emotional imbalance. It was a breakdown in relationship between me and the rest of the world. About 8 months before this happened, before I found myself in this situation, I noticed some subtle shifts, but they were subtle. It was kind of like being in a cauldron with the flame underneath slowly heating, and I didn't realize that the water was boiling until it was boiling. It came to a head one day, May 2011, May 10th, 2011. I had a recording session in Sausalito, and I was heading out of the house, and my beautiful dear Lisa, she followed me out of the door. She said, "You don't look very good. How about if I drive you?" And I said, "No, I can do this. I can do this." I'd spent my life being absolutely self-sufficient, self-contained. I was responsible for myself, mind over matter. I can overcome this strangeness. I can steel my resolve. And even though I feel awful and I don't even understand where the awfulness is coming from, I can do this. And so I got in my car and I crossed the bridge over the bay to Sausalito. I arrived in the parking lot and I had to muster every ounce of energy that I had to step out of the car. And as I moved across the parking lot to the entryway, things got progressively, I got dizzier and dizzier until everything went dark. Now, I'd never fainted before, and I don't know if, for those of you who have fainted, I don't know if it's a similar experience, but for me, it was like going into dream time. And so all of a sudden, I was driving my car again, and my hands were clutched firmly to the steering wheel, and my eyes were absolutely riveted on the bridge, on the highway, and I was paying such close attention and gripping the steering wheel, and I heard my name being called, but I could not pay attention to that because I had to steer. I had to keep control of my car, and I had to keep my gaze fixed on the freeway, and there I was holding, and I heard my name, but I couldn't pay attention. I had to grip the wheel, and I kept hearing my name, and somehow I let go, and I followed the voice, and It was the engineer calling my name, trying to bring me back to consciousness. I had to let go in order to wake up. I had to let go, release control, in order to regain consciousness. The paramedics arrived in a flurry, and I had EEG monitors on my chest and my back, and they ran a battery of tests. And at the end of it all, they said that I had fainted. They called it vasovagal syncope, which is a really fancy term to describe a very common fainting episode triggered by the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve and the one that connects the brain to the heart. Little did I know that it was exactly that, the connection between my brain and my heart, that would lay the template for my journey and ultimately my healing. Within 3 days, tons of doctor's visits, ultrasound scans, blood tests, I was officially diagnosed with 2 massive tumors, one the size of a large melon, the other one like a mango size. And then, of course, the resulting blood clots and pulmonary embolisms. We saw it, they look like worms. Because they form in the vein, I always imagined clots when I heard it like little peas, but in fact, they're like worms, like spaghetti, and they're the scan of my lungs, and it just was like teeming with these things. And between the cancer, and ovarian cancer is pretty hairy. 2/3 of all women diagnosed die from it. But more threatening than the cancer, even at that point, were all these pulmonary embolisms. Doctors gave me a 3% chance of survival. I liked what Reverend Michelle Wadley said on Monday morning chapel. She said 75% of all statistics are made up. That was pretty much my attitude. I knew the tests were measuring things that were very monodimensional. They could not measure the enormity of my spirit, my will, and what this crazy circumstance was here to teach me. What we all know as metaphysicians is that the divine is present in everything, everywhere, no exceptions. It's in everything. Rumi says, find the antidote in the venom. Azim reminded us of that last night. Find the antidote in the venom. That was one of my guiding themes. Now, if finding the antidote in the venom is the gift of this, I needed to find indeed what was the antidote in this venom. What was it here to teach me? How was it here to grow me? Thankfully, because of my deep spiritual practice, I wasn't afraid to die. But I still felt like there was more for me to experience and grow in this physical form. In my journal, I wrote at the time, this isn't a game or a battle to be won or lost. Each of us is going to die. The question is, how fully do we live? How do we bring the fullness of our being to every moment? It's not about errors, but about opportunities to grow and evolve, to deepen in our awareness and expand our humanity. The gift of this disturbance, this inconvenience, was that it was actually pulling me deeper into an experience of my being. Now, with cancer, there's so many storylines. There's so many storylines about what cancer is. Everywhere I looked, it was the war against cancer, the battle on cancer. What I knew, in order to heal, my body was not going to be a battleground. There was no way that I could heal coming from a place of conflict and separation. I needed to come from a place of wholeness and connection. And so there I began. Cancer is a proliferation of cells that are incoherent and have no service to the whole. Cancer cells take without giving, they consume without serving. In contrast, healthy cells communicate, share, interact with a wholeness and a balance and a coherence with the whole, with the environment. So I saw a breakdown in relationship, and that's where I began. I went into meditation and I asked my tumors what they were here to teach me, and very quickly they revealed despair and mistrust. Despair and mistrust. I was surprised by that. Despair and mistrust. I was a super confident, happy, loving person. How did I accumulate despair and mistrust in my being? But as soon as I sat with it, it was immediate. It was like a trapdoor lifted from my heart, and this despair and this mistrust poured forth. And what it was is that I realized I came on the planet knowing that I was here to be an agent of good, to be an ambassador of kindness, but somehow I did not trust the world to reciprocate, to bring goodness and kindness and support to me. And I'd used my mind to create a very powerful shield around my heart. That mind that protected me, that shielded me, also prevented me from receiving. And there, as I was so surrendered, so absolutely vulnerable, I couldn't do anything. I literally, my most basic bodily functions, eating, moving, I could not do myself. I was so vulnerable that I could do nothing else but ask for help. And so I did. And the response was astounding. The deluge of support, of love, of kindness, letters, cards, support, meals, painting, songs. Every day I cried. I cried tears of joy, tears of relief, tears of recognition that, in fact, there was so much good out there for me to receive, and it was my unconscious beliefs that had kept me from receiving that fundamental perfect flow that exists in life. We never know how we're going to die. We don't know what we'll be thinking when we die. We don't know, in fact, if we'll be thinking at all. But I had a crazy and amazing opportunity to get a periscope into that experience when 2 weeks after my surgery, we went in to remove the stitches. And all of a sudden, I felt this really sharp and unfamiliar pain in my chest. And I told the attending physician what had happened, and she became very alarmed. And she said, because of the prevalence of the pulmonary embolisms, it was very likely that one had escaped through the filter they had placed to protect me, and that I very likely had 30 minutes to live. So we rushed to the emergency room, and they pushed me past the triage nurse, and Lisa and I were there in this back room, 30 minutes. And in those 30 minutes to live, there was nothing that mattered except love. We didn't even talk to each other, really. We just looked in each other's eyes and recognized that the only thing that matters is love. That's what we're here for. That's what Robin was just singing about. That's the only thing. It's not about the awards. It's not about the accomplishments. Up until that point, I was so focused on achieving, on doing. There was nothing to be done. It was just to love. And the gift of the cancer, the teaching of the cancer, is that I actually had to surrender. I had to let go. And in letting go, I could rest my mind, enlist my mind in the service of my heart. enlist my mind in the service of my heart. And in that process, there was then just gratitude. Gratitude for the opportunity to be part of an evolution. Chaos, which is present everywhere in nature, is that tipping point. It arises in any natural system as it grows and shifts. Chaos happens when any system goes through change. For any system to change, it must go through a period of chaos. The chaos happens and that system either collapses or reorders at a higher level of being. The chaos that happened through the cancer was an invitation to actually reorder at a higher level of functioning. But in this case, it wasn't an invitation. It wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't move theory into practice. It was an ultimatum. I was dangling on the precipice, and there was nothing else to do but surrender, accept, receive with gratitude the opportunity to be part of something right now, which is an evolution of consciousness. We are all moving in a direction of heart, opening to love as our guiding pole star. It is love that allows us to move from a small rubric of mind into the infinite perfection of a world that works for everyone, literally for everything. Dr. Holmes said, "Let love lead the way. Love sees only love, and only love sees love." So, as we live in this time where there is perfection, which is sometimes eclipsed by an experience of contrast, an experience of chaos, of pain, of tragedy, of disease, I ask simply that we take these opportunities to grow our hearts and become clearer vessels for the transmission and the expression of love that is seeking to express through us. Love. Our lives depend on it. Thank you.